Greetings and salutations, you absolutely gorgeous individuals. Yes, bet your bottom dollar it's another ep. Yeah, Flickr, Doc, Eric, and Mark here with you guys for some weekend recap action. Getting to some of the marquee high stakes matchups, and let me tell you, the theme of we're talking about Smash so much in this early year for T1, but it really feels like the rest of the team hath risen with him in the lineup. This was a vintage performance from T1. I know it's against a Nongshim on the day, but it was, vintage T1 where they get such a disgusting macro lead. The kills were like 6-2 and they're up like 7K. The game looks completely over. Then they troll for a little bit. The game gets back in before they win in a decisive team fight. That was kind of the theme in both of these games.
It's a little bit difficult and complicated of a situation given Gumayushi and what he represents to not just the T1 organization and his teammates, but to the fan base of T1 and what they've accomplished and built up as this new dynasty. It's difficult for this type of situation, but it is one of those things, as you mentioned, and going through this series and looking at what happened for T1, having Smash in that lineup is an instant injection of this vitality, of a type of resurgence and second win for this T1 team. You've seen them step into the lineup, and especially the bottom lane with Kyria. I think that many times we always talk about the skill and the chemistry that comes through from Guma and Kyria. Smash and Kyria are cooking to another level, and they cooked some Nongshim today.
Yeah, 90% first blood rate still. Not 100 for Smash, but pretty much every series, at least one of the games, him and Kyria are getting a straight up 2v2 first blood. And it was a highlight reel for Kyria on the Pike in this second game. And a highlight reel alongside Owner as well. We know the synergy between Owner and Kyria has been there for years, but the Lee Sin kicks into the hooks from the Pike. This was a solo queue montage at its finest for them going back and forth.
I don't think I've ever seen it, and not because it's not so crazy that no one would think of it, just because I've never seen it actually properly executed, is the Lee Sin ultimate into the Pike finisher for the kill. I don't think I've seen that one in a long time, if ever. That one was pretty hyped to see. T1 was playing on full power, I would say, in this series. I think you had everybody contributing and playing towards their very best on stage, and especially one of the guys I want to give that shout out to. I know we're talking Smash and Kyria and everything else for that bottom lane. I want to go all the way to the other side of the map. I'm going to talk about Doran and the role that he's played for this team, the stability, the consistency, and the angles that he has given advantages for this T1 team. It looks just like the Doran that has been a dominant figure in that top side amongst LCK regular seasons all the way through the last 3 years.
And maybe most impressively, Faker continues to be the only one who makes Corki look viable. It doesn't matter mid lane or bot lane right now. He put up some pretty disgusting damage numbers, but it really feels like this core of T1 now with Smash in the lineup, Doran coming over. It's like they're just picking any of these new guys on the roster to say, we've been there. Let's highlight you and showcase that you can be a star player too, because that's just the aura that guys like Kyria, Owner, and Faker have right now.
It reminds us that even in these difficult or complicated situations that can arise when you have an established talent and you're looking to replace it, or you have another option, all these type of things, it still rings up that it's important to keep that door open, to keep that open mind, to try these type of things and see how it goes. Because again, this is a big-time home run, how Smash is playing right now, and whether this is how you continue things with T1 down the line, or whether this is just simply the early beginnings of 2025. However it plays out, right now T1 is at a very high power level amongst the high power levels of the LCK.
And not to be outdone, not to shy away, even though they knew this is the potential opening round matchup of the actual playoffs. Hanwha Life got on the Rift the next in the LCK and said, you know what, let's make a statement ourselves. And Zeus in particular starting to buy into the theories that this guy wanted to step out of the T1 shadow and show that he can be the best top laner on a different squad, because the side lane diff in this matchup against DRX was very prominent in both the Gnar and the Aurora game. I think he had almost a 3K individual lead.
It's that singer that needs to take that step away from the famous group to try something different, get that solo album. And it's not the greedy one, the one that's all about the money. And I'm sure, yeah, a little bit about it is about the money. That doesn't hurt, of course. But yes, this is a clear indication, I think, the way that we have seen things operate for Hanwha Life and kind of the attitude that Zeus has carried himself around in the LCK is to prove himself on that individual level, to take this new journey, to take that next step and additional, leadership or load, whatever it would be, that isn't available due to whatever circumstances were there at T1. Again, a little bit of speculation, but judging from what we have seen from Hanwha Life, I feel pretty confident with that one. And the way that Zeus has, again, risen into this role for this team that was leaving that spot open for him really has shown what he can do in the LCK as one of these top laners. In this series, he was a big enough difference on his own that it'd be enough to be enough for the series.
So I guess the only question is Zeus entering his Justin Timberlake post-NSYNC era or the Beyonce post-Destiny's Child era? That's what we got to see.
I'm feeling a little bit, it's maybe a little bit more the JT. He might come out with, Cry Me a River here or there, Rock Your Body. Who knows what's going to be coming out from your man Zeus. But I've got a feeling we got a hit song coming through when we get the showdown against T1 in this do or die matchup in the LCK. Yes, no loser bracket available for this one between T1 and Hanwha Life. Both of them giving the full effort in this series. Can't wait to see this one. The drama is going to be intense.
Yeah, and listen, the reality is go easy on whichever team is getting eliminated, because after this split, you're going to look back and see, oh my God, how did this squad get eliminated in the first round of playoffs? How embarrassing. But yeah, that's just the way the bracket is shaping out here. These are two, championship contending squads, especially not just Zeus for Hanwha Life, the rest of the boys, even though Delight had a little bit of some for fun gaming on the Rift in this one. Viper is playing at an all-time level right now, and I mean, Smash is probably the only guy in conversation as the best ADC in the league right now.
Well, it's so good, this matchup on so many levels. You can even go through the history and talk about players and looking at Owner versus Peanut. Peanut's kind of had his number at times, type of thing, but Owner is on a fantastic stretch right now for T1. You can look, of course, the swap in the top lane of Zeus and Doran. Both of them have been very key contributors for their team so far as well. And then you go Smash and versus Viper in the bottom lane, or is it Guma versus Viper? And even then, that's the story where it changes about, okay, well, Viper, Smash has been in the lineup, and then if Guma comes in, all those type of questions. The drama around this series and knowing that one of these teams is going to be on the sidelines afterwards is very intense.
Yeah, and I think that even if you didn't have the Zeus versus T1 drama coming into this, you'd still have just this marquee matchup is so amazing, and you remember they were both on the same side, so we actually haven't had Zeus match up against his former squad and Doran against his former one. So this is giving finals energy, and we're in the opening round.
It's going to be one of those situations where it's a very real possibility that we get to the end of the year, that we get to Worlds, and we're talking about one of these teams as the top team from the LCK, the best team.
They might be the top two.
Absolutely. And that is going to be the drama that can't wait to unfold this weekend, boys.
That's why we get 3 splits, not just one. So we don't put everything, all the eggs, in that winter split basket. All the storylines hype for the first split in the LCK. Well, over in the LTA, half the league's already done for the year, or done for the split. They're on vacation because they're not playing again until April.
Oh, man, the LTA giveth and the LTA taketh away. And yes, the unfortunate reality of the format and change that we've gone into this year is that it's scheduled out that if you are kicked out, you are done at this point. Well, good luck. We'll see you in April. April? Oh, my Lord. This has got to be something that we are looking at in the future of how to change it around. I'm fine if maybe you want to still use this as a heavy penalty, one of these big, cost of failure type of things for these teams that don't succeed in the early part of the year. but I think it's far too severe to do it that type of way. And I think, again, from a product point of view, as what you're putting out as entertainment, having this type of, hot and cold type of stove of who's playing and who's not really is not going to help the growth of the league or gain any real traction.
I mean, when you're playing 6 to 8 games total in a split, you've barely even figured out what works and what doesn't work on your roster yet. So yeah, it's insanely quick, but luckily, if you are a fan of the LTA, it was the teams you'd expect advancing, both Team Liquid and FlyQuest. We'll look at TL first. It just felt like kind of across the board, anytime it seemed like somebody on Team Liquid was caught out, the rest of the squad was just out of frame, waiting to save them, whether it was Impact in the top lane or Jan getting caught out mid.
The LTA is just proving that it carries the ghost, the bones of the LCS past, with Team Liquid as the 4th seed heading on.
And that's going way in the past, to get back to that meme.
Absolutely, but you're right. When you're talking about Team Liquid, it felt like it was a situation where there's some mistakes, some bad choices coming through from this squad, bailed out by the rest of the teammates being around, having that synergy, having the communication, be there at the right times. Team Liquid is one of these teams that I think I'm looking for a little bit more individually from APA. I know he is a big time leader, one of the big engines for this team, and I think he's someone that can step up and deliver a little bit more as we move into this next territory, this north and south meeting in the LTA. For Team Liquid, I think that this is still at the very least one of the things where the bare minimum was expecting you to be at this point, and now what you do from here is really where we're going to be grading and starting to talk about where you are compared to last year.
Yeah, and again, the concern with APA is still, it feels like this guy's played so many Azir games, but he still doesn't look that comfortable on the champion.
Still doesn't look all that comfortable on Azir. I think really, the Tristana, the Talia, those things, you certainly see that comfort for him on those champions. Not quite seeing it there on the Azir. Of course, still something that we can deal with and work with, of course, over the time. But for Team Liquid, pretty important having that be a champion that you can roll through, prioritize, and draft, of course.
And, despite losing that 3rd place seeding tiebreaker to FlyQuest, they were probably a few botched engages away from winning that one. Umpty had some suspect re-engages on the Skarner ulti, bringing back in Cassiopeia and Nico. Not such a good idea.
And I've been there. So I cannot throw flame and dirt onto my boy Umpty for that one. But yeah, definitely not the best type of plays coming through from Team Liquid in that one. But that does lead to talking about FlyQuest moving through as that number 3 seed team. I think this is, again, one of the things that we talked about last weekend, looking at this one and where things were going to be for both of Team Liquid and FlyQuest, that yes, you could feel relatively certain of, but to get them assured to lock in the spots and make sure that you're the ones heading to this meeting of North and South was very important for the LTA.
And this was a Whippo series, if I've ever seen one, against Dignitas. You got the Swain pick first, which actually he has the low-key hero moments of this game. He delays a first turret take to ensure his team gets one. He zones 3 guys so the rest of the team can take a Baron and just absorbs so much damage and tankiness on that Swain. And then the blind pick Garen. Blind picking Garen always seems a little bit of a psychotic move, but somehow he's managed to mind control Surti as well in the laning phase.
Oh no, a little bit painful talking about this one for Surti. I think everybody, it doesn't take a very seasoned player to even see the vision. They know the timeline that Surti's going for, where he gets the kills, he gets the win.
It wasn't calculating the XP on Bwipo, the clutch level up to spam the ult.
I was going to say, I think everybody else, though, was quite aware of the zone that Bwipo was in, and knowing that, well, maybe if I'm not counting all the XP and all the minions quite right, it's going to be close. And I don't want to risk it against a champion like Garen in this sense. And, well, he does risk it, and there is the penalty and the cost for Dignitas. Crazy to see the Garen come out. I know he has been, evolving and becoming a little bit more consistent as far as seeing him involved in professional play. But seeing him in professional play without the Yumi attached to him is certainly a whole nother experience. So good to see Bwipo able to utilize that one for FlyQuest. I think that this was overall a very relatively a comfortable series for FlyQuest against Dignitas to dispatch them, and then very comfortable given the mistakes that they could be handed over from Team Liquid in that ultimate third place decider match.
Yeah, and you can call the series against Dignitas a convincingly sloppy set. It took them north of 35 minutes to close out both of these games, but was never really in doubt that they were going to win them, just how they managed to close it out. And obviously another series, another couple of slick highlights from Masu. Continues to be, to me, the most exciting player, at least native talent in North America. The Rift Herald play where he goes, and you hear him talk about it afterwards. Obviously, he's a humble guy, very modest, soft-spoken, just saying, obviously, I felt safe with the Rift Herald, and I don't know why they engaged. They're trolling. They're inting. And you're like, yeah, okay, for sure, man.
He calls him as he sees him. I like him, pretty honest. But for Masu to be performing like this for FlyQuest is probably the best sign to start the year for them, what you wanted compared to last year for this team, or where you were going to possibly make the next biggest strides, biggest gains compared to last year, was Masu continuing to develop, to continue to take that next stride to become a monster down in this bottom lane for this team, to be another viable threat and angle for this team. And you're seeing that through these games in the LTA so far. So many times we talk about a young player and see them have a good performance here or there and talk about building off of it, and then it doesn't quite happen. The progression is not always this linear upwards path that we talk about. And for someone like Masu, who has relatively been on that linear upwards path, it's getting even steeper on that upward slope as he goes through and gets experience at MSI, at Worlds, and now showcases it here in the LTA. Keep going up for FlyQuest.
Yeah, and this is, again, a series that didn't feel like they were firing on all cylinders. It was kind of a passenger series for Quad in that mid lane, which is fine, which you still have to get it done against some of the lower tier teams, even if you're not firing on all cylinders, but still feeling good about FlyQuest and Team Liquid, even though they had those upset losses, which maybe weren't even upsets, to Cloud9 and 100 Thieves earlier. But those are your four teams heading over to Brazil to show down against the top four teams from the LTA South, and we'll break that all down as it advances. The LPL also returned over the weekend, and hands down, the certified banger, you can call it the whole series, but we're looking at especially Game 5, JDG versus Weibo, was far and away the best, most exciting match of the weekend.
I think he's had a couple of moments throughout this early part of the year that have introduced him, thrown him into the deep end of the LPL. This absolutely will be the mega shove into the deep end of the LPL for FaZe. Welcome on in. This ain't no LCK. This ain't no Gen G experiments. This is JDG versus Weibo Gaming, prime time in the LPL, Game 5. And what is this? A 60k plus damage Ezreal game? FaZe popping off and dealing with all the craziness that is in the LPL.
Yeah, and I mean, they basically probably tell him, oh yeah, so in the LPL, when's the optimal time to fight? And they say, yes, that's right. Yes, we fight. That's all we do. And there was lots of fighting in this one. But yeah, the Game 5, and I've never seen a game go so back and forth over the last 15 minutes. I feel like you could hear on the cast, it was like, well, it's a given. Look at that. Weibo locking up first in this group. Oh, no, never mind. Wow, look at that. JDG locking up first until the very last fight of the game, where let's give some flowers to your boy Scout as well for the Tristana performance in Game 5. We saw the duality of Scout in this series, and truthfully a lot of pro players on Tristana, but for the most part, the pop-offs far outweighed the Malphite ultis for Scout in this Game 5.
Yes, absolutely. I still love that. Anytime you see a Tristana have one of those type of moments, it is just calling it a Malphite.
Yeah.
That's what Malphite does.
Yeah,
that's not
just
exactly
without the knock up, any form of CC, and you die immediately.
So that's not exactly what Tristana should be doing in a lot of these cases, type of things. But what Tristana should be doing is what Scout did in Game 5. Yes, he was fantastic in this one. I think one of the things to talk about still with maybe, some inconsistencies in his own performance and, of course, with the rest of everybody pretty much in the LPL for the most part. But even with all that, to come through in the clutch the way that he is able to do and be relied upon for that, that's exactly why you bring him in if you are a squad like JDG for this type of role, for this type of roster. Good to see from them and what they're able to do at this part for in the LPL.
And I think it's important to highlight, I think JDG, based on the roster on paper, we had higher expectations for, but Weibo gave them absolutely everything that they could handle in this series. Tien almost solo carried this game on the Viego to get them back into it, but aside from yet another terrifying Elise support performance, this pick continues to be a debacle, a plague across all the regions. Weibo looks much better than advertised as well.
I think the greatest trick of all time was Beryl convincing everybody that this at least is viable down in the bottom lane. I love it because it's something different. It's a different angle, and yes, it very heavily plays into get the cocoon, make the play, and all these type of things happening. But man, when it goes wrong, it's going wrong, and it is stanking up the bottom lane. I think light on the Jinx in this one would be asking for anything different in this Game 5 from the support.
Yeah, I mean, once your burst combo is kind of null and void post 15 minutes, all of a sudden you're just a cocoon bot and you can delay someone for 2 seconds when you do the repel, because otherwise you're getting blown up in less than 3 seconds.
Yeah, you're gone. So you're not really useful in any of those type of moments later on. And especially, as we all know, later on is usually when the things matter even more. And especially when start, 4v5. At least no more. Stop it. Get it out of here. Stop it in the drafts and these type of ones. I think that's one of those situations where you're playing with your friends. Nobody says anything after you lose the game. You get into the next one and, you're banning my champion.
Yeah,
what is
bro,
this?
I just played it.
Oh, come on. It's for the greater good, okay?
At least it's only one a series in Fearless Draft that we're seeing it. It's not like it's being picked multiple times. But yeah, definitely wasn't it for Hong in that 5th game. But yeah, JDG moves to 3-0 to finish atop that group. We still got the rest of the LPL to wrap up later this week. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, gorgeous individuals. Thank you so much for hanging out and supporting as always. And we will catch you on that flippity flip.